Namaskara and welcome to the final episode of Season 1 of A Village Story. One woman's journey from city chaos to village calm. I'm Akshita, and this podcast is my journey from the noise of the city to the stillness of the soil. When I began this season, I was in a space of waiting to make sense of life's shifts, waiting to hear what silence had to say, waiting to learn patience from the land around me. These episodes were born from that stillness. And you, my dear listeners, have walked with me through that pause. For that, I am deeply grateful. When I married and moved into the village, I was welcomed not as a guest or an outsider, but as one of their own. From the very beginning, I was folded into the life of the community, its warmth, its traditions, and yes, its expectations. With that belonging came responsibilities too. People felt they had the authority to ask me to take part in certain rituals, to uphold practices, to contribute to the rhythm of village life. Over time, I noticed how different this was from the experience of others who tried to move in from the outside. When agricultural land was sold to city families or outsiders, they were never truly considered villagers. They remained the people who bought land and never one of us. It made me realize how deeply identity in a village is tied not to ownership of soil but to relationships, kinship, and trust built over generations. I often reflect on this contrast. My place in the village was not earned through purchase or transaction. It was given through acceptance, through marriage, through becoming part of a family. And for that, I am grateful. Life gave me the rare opportunity to experience rural India not as a visitor or an observer, but as a villager myself. The village has been one of the largest chapters of my life. Through this podcast, I have been able to share only a handful of the moments that shaped me. Each story was a window into that world, a world full of contradictions, laughter, quarrels, resilience, and deep wisdom. But behind every story I have shared here, there are countless others waiting, and many of them are finding their way into the book I'm slowly writing. Among those countless stories are the people who left deep marks on my life. There was Gowramma, who first came to work on our land from a neighboring village and quite unexpectedly became my closest friend. She carried herself with a strength that made the hardest of days look lighter. With infinite patience, she showed me how to cross barriers I thought I could not. She guided me through rituals I had never known, helped me understand the rhythms of village life, and more than anything, helped me feel like I belonged. Then there was Gunda, volatile, unpredictable, often caught in the grip of his own addictions. He could start a fight in the blink of an eye, yet, when the moment demanded, he was the one who came rushing to help. For all his flaws, he carried a raw honesty and courage that time and again made him the unlikely hero of many village stories. And Subbi, quiet, determined, steadfast, she worked relentlessly every day, shaping her future with her bare hands. I watched with admiration as she built her own dream house brick by brick and then celebrated it with a feast so grand that the entire village danced and ate as if it were a festival. There are so many more stories of Gowramma, Gunda, Subbi, and many others who continue to live in my memory and are slowly seeping into the book I am writing. The village, with all its quirkiness, loud fights, and quiet strength, taught me more about life than any school ever could. Yet, even as the village shaped me, it was the farm that began to pull at me more strongly each day. Each time I walked up from the village to the farm, worked with the soil, built a bond with the trees and birds, I found it harder to return. I would spend hours under the shade of mango trees, looking up at the clear blue sky, feeling the wind on my skin, and sensing a deep oneness with the universe around me. Each season, the land transformed itself, as if it were trying on new dresses stitched by nature. After the first rains, it smelled of wet earth and promise. In summer, it carried the sharp, dry fragrance of dust. And each season brought with it a different light, a different mood, a different way of being. The farm itself was never the same place twice. Under the sun, it was alive with heat, buzzing with insects, and full of movement. But when the moon rose, everything softened. Shadows stretched long across the fields, and the silence grew deeper, more profound. My husband and I would spend many evenings there, simply watching. We would sit in awe under a sky studded with stars, watch the moon rise slowly over the village lake, then trace its path as it crossed the canopy of trees. The night would hold its breath, broken only by the sudden hoot of an owl or the quick scurry of field rats rustling through the grass. Those nights taught me a different kind of listening, a way of being still yet alert to every sound and shimmer around me. The farm was not just land, it was a living presence, changing with every hour, every season, inviting us to belong to its rhythm. Something happened in this waiting. It wasn't empty, it wasn't passive. The longer I sat with the soil, the trees, the birds, the more I began to hear something. A call, a pull, almost as if the land itself was reaching out. The land beckoned. Not in loud ways, not with grand gestures, but with whispers. In the rustle of leaves, in the stillness after rain, in the way the earth opened itself for seeds. The land began to speak, and its message was simple. Come closer, belong. For a long time, I resisted. I told myself it wasn't the right time. Rural India, after all, is not exactly financially rewarding, and we were in a fragile place, just about managing to meet both ends. And then life grew more complicated. My husband's elder brother and his family moved back into the village house due to health concerns. With that came new demands, new tensions, and renewed claims over the old joint property. The house that had once felt like a doorway into village life began to feel crowded. The mud walls, with all their history and warmth, now felt confining when I compared them to the vastness and freedom of the open fields. And yet, even in those moments of frustration and limitation, I hesitated. I told myself life wasn't ready, that I wasn't ready, that moving to the farm was too risky, too uncertain. But the call of the land doesn't fade. It doesn't grow weaker with delay. It grows stronger, steadier, like a heartbeat you can no longer ignore. Slowly, I came to see that all the waiting, the doubts, the struggles, even the setbacks had been preparing me, not to stay still forever, but to take the next step forward. That was my turning point. Season 1 has been about waiting, listening, pausing, learning to trust the in between. Season 2 will be about answering that beckoning, about listening to the land not just as a visitor, but by living within it. And so, with the help of my parents' generous gift, we began to build a small house on the farm. My husband had once started this dream years ago, but financial difficulties had left the structure abandoned halfway. What stood there was more like a skeleton than a home. Half walls, bare cement, and the quiet sadness of something left unfinished. Amidst this ruin-like frame, we carved out a beginning. It was both terrifying and exhilarating. To imagine moving fully, to imagine days shaped not by the rush of schedules, but by the sun and rain, by crops in the field, and by the unexpected lessons the farm would surely teach. But this step also came with a letting go. It meant moving away from the constant presence of people, from the familiar sounds and sights of village life. The farm lies less than a kilometer away, and yet it feels like another world. No more waiting in line for water while exchanging gossip. No more alcohol-fueled fights echoing through the streets at night. The village noise and bustle faded, replaced instead by a quiet that was both unsettling and deeply comforting. The silence of the farm carries its own stories, waiting to be heard, waiting to be lived. And in season 2, I will begin to share them. When I look back, I realize that season 1 has not only been my personal story, but in many ways a universal one. A story of waiting, of listening, of receiving a call, and daring to step into the unknown. Isn't that what so many of us experience in different forms? We wait, often impatiently, for clarity. We hesitate when opportunity whispers, and when the time finally comes, we gather our courage and take that first trembling step forward. Season 2 is that step for me. The farm is where the waiting ends and the living begins. And I can't wait to invite you into that journey. Before I sign off, I want to leave you with a small tip. Sometimes life asks us to wait, to pause, to listen. But don't confuse waiting with inaction. Listen closely, whether it's the call of a place, an opportunity, or an inner desire. And when the time feels right, take that first step, however small. That is where growth, belonging, and adventure begin. Thank you for walking this journey with me, for listening, for feeling, and for holding space for this story. If this episode spoke to you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please drop a comment. Until we meet again, keep breathing through your own seasons of change. Namaste and take care.